Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Community Platform. Rochdale Grooming. Where do we go from here? Who's to blame? 9 men have been convicted of sexually abusing girls as young as 13, grooming them for sex. Men, they were not children. One of the men was approximately age 56. One of them was a religious teacher. Majority of them, excluding one, was of Pakistani heritage. Today, some of our heads hang in shame. But should 9 men hold 3 million Muslims in United Kingdom as ransom? The number is on the screen. Get involved in the conversation. We know what happened. Our sympathy goes to those girls and their families, but also, as one of my colleagues on the panel has said in his blog, also goes out to the family members of the men who perpetuated, because those men have put those families through hell. Their heads must be hanging in shame. But the question is, are we talking about it? If we are talking about it, where is it leading to? Who's talking about it? What are the solutions? How are we going to deal with this? It is unacceptable that 9 men could be convicted of such a heinous crime, and the media and the politicians could paint the whole population as if we are all somehow have innateness to do this kind of atrocity. The judge actually talked and made a comment, which I found it at personal level extremely offensive, that these girls were not part of your community. What does that mean? We are all members of one humanity. But something has gone deadly wrong, and today we need to discuss that. We need to find out how we can save and come back to some reality. Assalamu alaikum, boys. Welcome, Mazhar bhai.
Walaikum assalam.
Assalamu alaikum, Majid. Majid, let me start with you. This is a very serious offense. This is terrible, and yet I feel somehow that I'm linked to this. Should I be feeling guilty that I'm Pakistani heritage and my head is hanging in shame?
Yeah, first and foremost, as you mentioned, the crime is serious. It involved children, girls under the age of 16. It involved grown men who took advantage of vulnerable girls. And it's led to a scenario where these type of activities, sexual activities, were going on for months, even I think to a certain extent about a year and a half possibly as well there then. Should it affect us? Yes, it should, because we ourselves are being questioned now, because the origin of these men, they say they were from Pakistani backgrounds, and therefore naturally of people of ourselves who are from a similar background as well, are kind of made to feel that, here you go, these are some men from your community involved in these activities, and therefore you need to start saying things or start speaking up now and kind of be held responsible. It's a bit of a media witch hunt that's going on at the moment. The words that have been used, Muslims, Pakistani men, if it's criminal activity, you deal it with it as a crime then. Race, religion, these issues, where does that come into the equation? You don't watch this on Newsnight, on Crime Watch. You don't start mentioning race and religion. A criminal activity is a criminal activity.
Absolutely.
Done by whether black, white, Japanese,
yes,
European, African, Pakistani, it doesn't make a difference.
But Majid, I get that feeling that what they're implying, I mean the judge's comments, as I said, I found it extremely offensive, that they're actually somehow implying that culture and religion may have, and there's some sort of innateness in the Pakistani men to be doing that. I am Pakistani, I've never heard of this.
And likewise, I heard of this as well until Jack Straw opened his mouth.
Yes.
And
well, he has a habit of opening his mouth.
He does, yeah. And it's almost a case of like, I've been silent on this issue for such a long time. I can't hold it any longer now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to speak out for the greater good. This person's been responsible for wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now he's talking about the greater good in his local community.
That's a vote seeking, isn't it, Majid? I mean,
it definitely is.
Yes,
yeah,
a vote seeking.
Definitely was at that time.
Yes.
And there was a Labour leadership issue raised
Yes.
at that time, and obviously he made those comments.
Yes, but I mean, and you did paint the whole, I mean, at that time, I think there was quite an uproar. And I do know that there were private meetings that were taking place. And it was, the damage was done. The fact is, whatever Jack Straw said afterwards, the damage had been done.
As soon as you say there's a cultural problem within the Pakistani community, straight away I'm being addressed. And I'm being told that, do you know what, in the way you guys live, somewhere in your upbringing and the teachings that are delivered to you, it's kind of acceptable to look at and view white girls, as he said, as easy meat, but not your own.
Yeah, yeah. But the telephone number is on the screen. Please do get involved, because this is an opportunity to hear what you're thinking. Are you from that community? Are you living next door to those people who are now suffering because you were the neighbor? Did the neighbor know? How could have this happened in a community over such a long period and nobody know about it? Call us and get involved with the conversation. Mazhar bhai, you know, it's all very well saying that this has happened and it's terrible. The fact is that we can't get stuck at the obstacle, can we? What do we do now? Who's going to take that role to say, yes, we need to stand up and say it's wrong, because a lot of people have said it's wrong, but who is going to make that difference so that never happens again?
You know, in a society, when you have problem, naturally speaking, it should be the leaders of that society or that community which should be looking to solve the problems. The problem we have is that the leaders of the community and the societies are the ones who are exacerbating the problem. So for example, you've already mentioned Jack Straw. Jack Straw came out last year and specifically said that there is almost something genetically wrong with Pakistanis. Now, there was a case in Derby last year. The police said it's got nothing to do with race. In this particular case, the Lancashire police, the Greater Manchester police said it's got nothing to do with race. The politicians come out and say it's a Pakistani problem. The media comes out with a Pakistani problem. I mean, in the Mirror last time, I mean, I've got a quote here somewhere from the Daily Mirror. It says, it's absurd to pretend that this has nothing to do with Islam. So it's not even Pakistani now, they're coming directly to the door of Islam. Only the politically blinkered refuse to see that Muslim culture promotes aggressive violence against women, and who often treated as little more than chattels. Now this kind of abuse and this kind of climate creates an atmosphere where you allow extremists to gain a sense of respectability. So the BNP and EDL, who are at the fringes of society, they are being given oxygen by the comments made by the press and people like Jack Straw. So now if the leaders are actually adding fuel to the fire, the question is, how can you solve this problem now?
So, but that's fine. Let me play the devil's advocate. So Jack Straw made those comments. Where was our leadership? How did they counteract that?
You know, unfortunately, a lot of our leadership look to Jack Straw for leadership. They are the ones who support him.
So we really, basically, you're saying we don't really have any leadership?
No, not effectively, yes.
Well, at least we've come to some conclusion today that we do not have leadership. What are we going to do? So we are now being led. I mean, it seems like that we're not being led by anyone then.
Well, we're not being led by anybody, but the problem is not simple. The problem is quite a big problem, and you can't just blame even Pakistanis or blacks or whites. We are all part of the same society, and there are certain common factors and attributes in that society that colour and shape everybody. Now, the way women are treated in its society, Islam has got its own view about women, about honour, dignity. We say Jannah is, heaven is under the feet of the mother. And there are so many evidences about treating the women nice. The Prophet ﷺ said, the best amongst you is the one who is good to their women folk. So I don't have to say that, you know, we know that. So where did these Pakistanis get these ideas from? They didn't get them from Islam. They didn't get them from
Maybe they don't know Islam.
Maybe, okay, let's say they don't know Islam. So they definitely didn't get it from Islam. They didn't get it from Pakistani culture. They must have got it from somewhere else. And I would say they have picked it up from general values in society.
But now, Yobbish society?
Our society, the one we live in. Now, if you look at crime, it's not something specific to Pakistanis. I mean, we had a huge paedophilia case in Ireland, right? That was a specific demographic. It was Catholic priests, and we're talking in the hundreds, if not the thousands,
2,000.
right? White Catholics. Nobody brought religion into it. Nobody brought race into it. In America, in Boston and in the northern states, where again the Catholic Church had this massive problem. Again, it was white Catholics. Nobody brought race into it. Nobody brought religion into it. But when it's Muslims, it's something to do with their religion. When Muslims try to protect their lands in Palestine or wherever, suddenly Muslims are terrorists. Somebody else does it, or the freedom fighters. It seems that anything and everything a Muslim does, it's the politicians and the media to try and demonize Islam, which creates a culture which makes it very difficult for Muslims to put their heads above the parapets and say, you know what, I'm Muslim.
Yeah, but the fact is that I agree. Whatever you've said, I cannot dispute. But the fact is that we have a problem, don't we?
Yes.
We have 9, and this, we don't know if there are more people like this who are doing this. Didn't anybody notice? Didn't anybody suspect what's going on? I find it very strange that family members could not have fathomed that, that is going out too many times.
Okay, I think it's not fair just to focus upon the perpetrators of the crime. Because if we look at the young girls who are the victims of this crime, you got to understand that, why is it generally okay for girls to go out and drinking, and boys? Yeah? Why is it okay for them to do certain things? For example, they're giving contraceptives out at schools. Yeah? They're allowing them to do all sorts of things. They're putting them in harm's way. And when they come to harm, they blame the perpetrator. But as a society, all of us collectively hold some blame that as a society we say it's okay for little girls and little boys to carry on the way they are carrying on.
Point taken, but that still does not give any man the right.
Of course it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Of course it doesn't. But if you bring, temptation near to criminals, it's going to happen more likely. If you keep criminals away, temptations away from the criminals, it's difficult for criminals to perpetrate their crime. So I'm saying there's 2 elements to it. So the society, the politicians, the media, the churches, the mosques, they can't say, oh, we've got nothing to do with it, it's just the criminal. No. Society is to blame, and there is a cultural problem in this society. It's not specific to Pakistanis, it's a fundamental cultural problem.
Yeah, but how come, Majid, that all of them, except one, was Pakistani? They were. That's a fact.
I think one angle that we need to take on this issue is that these are the reported crimes that have been pursued. How many times do we hear, let's see other cases, that rapes, majority of the rapes in this country are not reported to the police. Therefore, the statistics that we have on the issues of rapes is just scratching the surface.
Right.
So again, when the media is reporting that the Pakistanis have got a monopoly on this issue, I think one of the things that we need to definitely say, the statistics are not conclusive. These are the only reported crimes which have come out. I am sure that there are plenty of cases to do with a lot of other races as well, where women have not come forward and spoke out. And in this case as well, they have been reporting that many women have not come forward. Only 5 of the girls came forward, out of, again, we don't know how many. These were the men involved, there were more other men as well. But likewise, that angle stands for other issues as well then. So there could be whites, there could be blacks, there could be people from other communities up and down the country perpetrating exactly the similar crimes of grooming, street grooming, whatever we want to label it as, rapes, date rapes, but the girls are not coming forward to report these issues. Therefore, that never ever gets reported.
And I just wondered if there's rape within the Asian, as a Muslim woman or an Asian woman, I don't think women are going to come out and say that I was raped. Because, we're still living in a society which stigmatizes a woman, not the man who's the rapist, but in this case...
That will stand for most women. Most women will not have the courage or whatever issue is going to be to come forward and say this issue. Which is why I say that then it just... the way the media reports that we have a monopoly as Pakistani people over this issue is completely wrong. And the way they report this issue about race, just to pick up some of Mazhar's points, there has been cases where even Asian girls have been groomed. So one case is again in Rochdale. She was an Asian girl. These guys have been sentenced. This is a story from September 2011. Okay, so a 16-year-old was involved, grooming, vodka, knocked out, and then taking turns for rape.
And the men were from which ethnicity?
They were Pakistani again.
Well, there seems to,
but the thing is, the way the media is saying, look, these guys singled out white women because they
this is what the judge said. This is what the judge said.
And what we're trying to say is a sexual predator does not have a religion, doesn't have a race. He just views opportunity, vulnerable girls, right? We can corner her. Maybe she hasn't got a dad, maybe she hasn't got an uncle, family structure is a bit whatever. Right, we can get away with this. That's the mindset of a sexual predator. They don't say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and then do this action.
No.
They don't hold the Pakistani flag and do this action, do they? So how can then the media start saying some of these things that is Pakistani related or...
But we allow it, don't we, Majid? We allow it because we sit quietly in our homes in the comfort. We are politicians in the back room. We don't do anything about it. Ask me, when was the last khutbah done on this issue? I don't go to the mosque. You tell me, when was the last khutbah done that this is happening and we will not allow this to happen in our communities?
You see, look, again, you make a very interesting point because Islam is being secularized, right? What that means is, in our day-to-day lives, Islam is somehow separated from that. So the khutbahs and Islam is generally taught about rituals and morals. This is fundamentally important. We have to do that.
Yes, of course.
But then in our life, how we behave, how we act, we don't seem to hear or have a focus upon that. And hence, you know, Islam is almost become like almost like the Anglican Church of Islam now. That, you know, Islam, pray in the mosque, when you come out, do what you like. And this, they're anglicizing Islam. I mean, when you look at the problems, let's look at the problems like Majid was saying. In this society, right, 900 women are raped each week in Britain. That's not just a Pakistani problem. Yeah? In the past year, we've seen a number of stories of paedophiles in nurseries. That wasn't a Pakistani problem. We have seen stories of over-sexualization of girls in the high streets, where high street shops are selling, you know, tubes and bikinis for, you know, prepubescent girls. That's not a Pakistani problem. When you've got, you know, 67 out of 1,000 girls aged 17 or under falling pregnant, that's not a Pakistani problem. That's the societal problem. And the problem is, there's relative morality in this society.
So how do we
now,
bring it
in
back?
Pakistani, generally Pakistani Muslims, black, African, whatever, Muslims houses or other people of other religions will have some guidance of morality, of what is right, what is wrong. When you live in a society where it has been over-secularized, where anything and everything is acceptable if the majority accepts it, then we're going to have problems like this.
But isn't there another word for that called democracy?
You can call it democracy, you know, and again...
isn't that what it is, you know, that women are entitled to wear what they want, and that...
well, let me say something. You know, in Britain, maybe 50 years ago, 100 years ago, if a woman walked into a pub, she was frowned upon, because they had some values. Now, if a woman goes into the pub, oh, equal. So, you know, the dignity and the honor of a woman is being stripped away. Is being stripped away by society, by over-secularization. And hence, you know, when you go down this path, what was considered bad 50 years ago, 100 years ago, is today considered good. Who knows? Maybe this act, what happened today, and we are huffing and puffing about it, who knows in 50 years, 100 years' time, we'll think, oh, it's okay. It's for the development of small children to have interactions with adults. And some people in America say that. You know, there's an organization in America called the NAMBLA. Right? I won't go through the acronym because it's disgusting. But there's a party in America called NAMBLA which call for the relationship between children and adults.
I dare not ask you. I dare not ask.
So where are we going? And this is the problem. The problem here is secularization and divorcing life from a divine purpose.
So what you're basically saying is that we have a secular society, although 71% in not this census but the last census actually said that they were Christians. So we're still saying that we are living in a secular society. I want to know what the solution is. I know what the problem is. I know there's secularization taking place. I know that we're living in a European society. I know all this is happening. I want to know what the solution is. I want to know that when my sisters send their children to school, that they feel comfortable. I need to know that when my son goes to university, he's protected. What is the solution and who's going to take a step? Because what happened with these 9 men is not acceptable.
Okay, we can't blame the mosques and the imams all the time because they can only do so much.
Let me take this call and call. Waqar bhai, salam alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Ji Waqar bhai, what do you have to say? I think the line has dropped. I'm sure he'll come back. I'm sorry, you were saying.
I'm just saying it's not fair just to put the blame on, say, the mosques or the imams because
not at all.
They can only do so much.
Yes.
But I mean, they don't make the laws. They don't police the societies. Yeah. So this is a bigger problem which has to be taken by, you know, almost government bodies. But if the government bodies do not view moral or morality as something important, then to be quite honest, how can you solve this problem?
Only a couple of weeks ago, was it last week, I did the community platform did a program on political participation. Majority of the phone calls that came, don't vote. Do not vote. Do not get involved in the political process. And here you are telling me that it has to be a political change. How are we going to get this change, for goodness sake, if we are not involved and yet we want a political change?
You know, in Britain, if you want to have a political change, the politics of a country reflect the culture of that society. You can't divorce the politics from the general culture of that society. If the general culture of that society is secular, is about man being sovereign, you can't now change the politics which is going to be different from that unless you change that culture of the people first.
So give me a solution. Mazhar bhai, think about the solution. You've got to give me a solution before you go.
Shall I tell you, look, some solutions are hard. They're not easy. Some
Give me the
solutions are hard,
solution.
they're not easy. If, as a Muslim society, we had an example to point to and say, you know, in Britain, we should live like, for example, Pakistan, or we should live like Iraq. We don't have an example to give, unfortunately. So we can't even say that, you know what, we have a society which lives according to Islam. Look how well the women are doing. Look how well the men are doing. Look how well society is living together in harmony, Muslims and non-Muslims. If we had the example, we could say, yes, we can follow that way. But we can't follow anything. Today, what we are following is America.
Let's take this call. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam.
Ji, Abdul Bhai, what do you have to say?
Abdul Hanan, not Abdul.
Yes, brother.
The solution, well, in my view, it has to be that we have to promote the Islamic values. We have to promote the Islamic ideals. And this you will not do by assimilating the way we're told to assimilate. For example, if I was to go onto Sky News or BBC and turn around and say that men should not be buying drinks for women, irrespective of the age, that's something that's frowned upon in this society. But Islamically, it's wrong. So that's the value that I need to adopt. What I see that these youth have done, and whether you want to call them youth or whether you want to call old men, is that, yes, they had Islam quite clearly. One of them was even an Islamic teacher. The point is, it's no point just having the clothing of Islam or the title of Islam if you don't have the personality and the shakhsiyah of Islam, the characteristics of Islam. What they had is a confused character. They picked and mixed their values. So they knew, they most probably ate halal food. They most probably went to Jummah. But they knew, during this time, this is what you do. But at the same time, they most probably went to the nightclubs, because in this society you can. Whereas, the Islamic value, the Islamic shakhsiyah, the Islamic akhlaq, says that not only is this forbidden for me, but it's something that I do not even think about. And that will not come about by us thinking that we're going to influence the politicians to give this value to us. We have to give this value to society. Politicians aren't going to give this value to us. No matter how many people you vote for, no matter how many parties you vote for, there is no party which will stand up and say, you know what, you're right. Young girls should not be plied with drugs or alcohol.
Thank you very much. Good points, and I hope that we can talk about them. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. Majid, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely, I'd agree with the caller there. And some of the points I have been raising, generally when speaking to people of other faiths and generally the wider community, that obviously we are raised in a particular way. We have certain ideas about how to operate between men and women. So how we behave in schools with girls and boys, in the workplace, and generally outside when we're out and about. What should be our approach and our behaviors?
Sure.
And that is modeled by Islam. I've actively gone out and spoke to a lot of like white colleagues as well and said, look, you know, I'm Pakistani. Do you feel threatened by me being of Pakistani origin in light of this case? Do you feel that because of my Pakistani culture, I'm going to be end up behaving like this? And they were like, you know, far from it actually. And that is because we practice Islam to the best of our abilities. We have the dimensions of halal and haram, the recommended, the mandub, makruh, stay away, disliked, which Allah Ta'ala dislikes. We have these parameters. And what we try to do, we try to operate in this to the best of our ability. What the brother mentioned, I think, was quite pristine in the sense that these values are different to what we see in front of us in British society.
He talked about personality, didn't he? It's almost that we do have an Islamic personality that we need to create.
Yeah.
Very difficult to create that, isn't it? It's becoming more and more difficult when you are faced with that kind of aggressive secularization.
Definitely, and that's why a lot of the, even the Christian popes and the leaders, when they came to here, they said there's militant atheism,
Yes,
you know, rampant in Britain,
yes.
which is correct actually. And it's been forced down our throats, and religion has been sidelined completely to the extent where it's laughable that somebody is practicing, or you know, why this guy got a beard, or why is a woman wearing, you know, long clothes for. They're seen as funny, rather than when we start looking at these issues, we realize the values of Islam and what it promotes. And on the other hand, when you leave people free and leave their imaginations to run wild, there could be chaos.
Absolutely, absolutely. The fact is that we
and
have...
Just to address one more point, you mentioned about last week's program was about political participation, and this week we were saying that, you know, was saying the government needs to do something. The point is, what can we do then is what we've done in many other cases. So when the government started to roll out a narrative that the Muslim community is responsible for these terrorists of 7/7, we started for the last 7-8 years. It's your fault. You should have rooted them out. There's something wrong with Islam. There's something wrong with your religion. Part of it which promotes these type of ideas that you should, hate kuffar and you should bomb places and stuff like this.
Sure.
We then came out. Government ministers were coming, sitting down, having round meeting tables with, certain people who liked samosas and tea and coffee and biscuits.
Cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah, and saying yes to everything, and they ended up doing more damage rather than good. They were challenged.
Yeah, but that's the leadership, weak leadership. We keep coming back. Let's take this call. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Asghar.
How are you, Anjum?
I'm fine, Asghar. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Today's topic is, of course, we're talking about the Rochdale grooming and what can we do and who should be doing it, Asghar. Tell me who should be doing it.
Well, I think it throws up two very important things. Yes, I've heard the speaker previously talking about the kind of demonization that comes off the back of this, and that's fair comment. Yes, the media or much of the right-wing media is often out to attack and demonize the Muslim community, but that doesn't stop, or that doesn't hide the fact that our institutions, our Islamic institutions, by doing nothing, by failing the Muslim community, has done nothing to counter these type of social ills within our community. This isn't about going and saying that it's all our fault. But the fact of the matter is, we have a responsibility to our own community, where social decay is happening, where our kids are in prison, where drug abuse is rife, and now you can see this type of real kind of corruption is setting in of this kind of grooming issue. And our institutions, we only have one, the mosque. It's all they really want to talk about is how high our trousers is, how big our bed should be, or can women even be allowed to come into the mosque to pray to their God? Now, if that's what our only institution where we could organize, where we could plan and enjoin the right and forbid the wrong in an organized fashion is not playing its part, then they have to take the blame.
I wonder, Asghar, as Mazhar Bhai said, we can't just put all the blame at the doorstep of our mosque or our imams. Some of them do a fantastic job. But let me ask you a question. Do you think that we, and I'm talking as a woman and as a mother, that some of that responsibility lies at my feet, how I train my children? Do you think that could also be a solution?
Anjum, obviously, the blame is portioned out, but here we're talking about an institutional solution. We can't say, there's no way to solve a problem by saying, women sort it out. You have to have an educational program. You have to have a rollout of a organized program that changes drugs or this particular issue. There has to be something where there's a center, and that center then gets all the community mobilized to tackle an issue. So you cannot, there's no point just pinning it on some housewife and saying, deal with this major problem. You have to have a organized community-wide solution, and that can only happen in the center of that community, which is the mosque. So no, I don't accept that you can hide and constantly back away from the responsibility of the £1 million building in the center of your community that everyone goes to. You have to at some point say, stop looking at the mosque as some dead place for old men to sit around and pray. It should be, as the time of the Prophet, where every social ill was examined and looked at and said, well, how can we resolve it and solve it? It's not just an empty building for you to put money in and stay in their bank account so they can build a bigger extension.
Asghar, it's always a pleasure to listen to you, but I always worry that when you call, it may be my last program. Jazakallah khair, and we will see you soon, and I really value your opinion. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, there you are. He's laid it straight. We're going towards a short break, apparently. I've just been told. Keep watching. Don't give up. The phone number's on there. Contact us. Get involved. This is Community Platform is your platform. Jazakallah khair. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Community Platform. We have been discussing the case about the 9 men who were grooming young girls for sexual gratification. The fact is, it happened. But what is the solution? How do we treat this? Who's going to lead? The fact that 9 families have been destroyed. The fact that these community members will suffer for many, many years. The fact that the extreme right-wing parties like the BNP are absolutely thrilled. The fact that the BNP demonstrated outside the takeaway where supposedly these men may have worked. Why did we give them this in the platter? What do we do? How do we deal with this situation? How do we open up this conversation without feeling guilty? Mazhar, we talked about the BNP. Majid, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. And I made a mistake and apologize on camera. Majid, the BNP had a demonstration, didn't they?
They did, yes.
Right? And that takeaway apparently, supposedly, might have been used by some of these men. Have we given these extreme right wings something in the platter to say, here you are?
Ourselves as a community, no, we haven't. But through the actions of these particular 9 individuals, it's built a further case for these organizations, yes. On the back of senior politicians making comments. And just today, just a few hours ago now, we've got the Rochdale MP, let's get this, the Rochdale MP, Simon Danchuk, he's mentioned it is a race issue and therefore we can't, detach race from this particular issue because that would be daft to do this. These are his comments. So he's just going off the back of his senior, Jack Straw, of what he said, and just spurring out the same comments. They haven't learned over the last 2 years.
But should they have learned?
They should. I mean, these politicians should have learned.
But,
Jack Straw,
but that's not going to get them vote, is it? Majid, that's not going to get them the vote. But we're not dealing with,
It's calculated. I don't think they're making mistakes. I think it's calculated.
You think it's planned?
Yes, well, I think it's calculated. They think look, they have to be very careful what they say because we live in a very litigious society, yeah? People take you to court, people will sue you. So they're very careful in what they say. And I'm sure before these councillors and MPs make statements about racism, they calculate, you know what, this is going to sound really good and I'm going to get good votes. And this is what's in the back of their mind. This is calculated. This is not off-the-cuff remarks.
And in Rochdale, definitely in the local elections that have taken place now, we've had a Labour increase in terms of Labour councillors as well.
Yes.
And there are around about 3 or 4 from the area where this incident happened. None of them have come up with any type of comments. So even as we were talking about leadership, as soon as you start aligning yourself to certain parties, these people have zipped themselves up and haven't even said anything on this issue, either in defence or to say, look, the race card is a wrong avenue to go down. They've zipped themselves up and they've gone for whatever the party line is.
So they have actually sold their soul. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah,
Right.
definitely. Which is why I think, even in the last show, political participation, a lot of the comments were that this line of political participation never leads to the welfare of our community.
No, let's take this caller. Assalamu alaikum. A caller from London.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Brother,
Hello?
Sorry, your name, sir?
Dr. Alawi here.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Alawi. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very well.
I'm so sorry I didn't recognize your voice. It must be my age catching up. Are you well, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
Dr. Alawi, we're discussing the case with reference to what happened to the 9 men who have been given 77 years jail sentence for grooming young girls aged 13 and below or above. What do you have to say?
Well, I think the first and foremost, we have to realize that one of the girls originally complained to the police in 2008, and it was ignored and discredited as a witness. But by then, the chief prosecutor. However, we have to look at this carefully, that it was Nazir Afzal, the Northwest Chief Crown Prosecutor, who obviously, of course, is a Muslim of Pakistan origin. He said that we have to look into this complaint procedure, and he opened the case again. And this is why these culprits have been sentenced. Now, we have to be fair. Yes, we have bad and good in every community, but we have to also tackle these issues which you had mentioned early, that the responsibility does not only lie on the husbands in the Muslim community, but it lies with the mothers. And I think apparently the early caller, he had made very interesting points, that we have failings, like every other, culture has its failings, Islam has its failings, and we have to realize that not enough is being done in the community, especially where our leaders are not playing the role. The Prophet ﷺ stated very clearly that we are one ummah, and if we see someone doing something which is not right, then we should go and physically stop them, and this is taqwa. At this stage and in this society, we are failing on that. We are frightened of speaking against gang crimes, which we clearly have in our society. And to be honest with you, Anjum, if I travel in different parts of the country, as you know that I am acquainted with, when I go to the Muslim areas, I hate to use this language, and I wish it was not so, but it's a fact. I find them to be slums. And the police deliberately ignore these areas because they know the crimes are being committed as atrocities in these areas. So let the Muslims or the Pakistanis or the Indians deal with it. But why should they ignore that? First of all, we have to deal it with ourselves and get community leaders who are equipped to deal with this. We don't have Muslim think tanks, or should I say we have Muslim think tanks, but are not dealing with these issues or these problems. And I think, again, we failed. And I'm not saying that the blame should wholly come onto the Muslims. I'm sure that, and if you look at the crime statistics, this happens in the other religions as well, in Christianity, in Judaism and others. But why is it that we are being pinpointed and Islam today is on the front page of every tabloid, saying that we are evil people? I'm sorry, Islam is not an evil religion. The Prophet ﷺ gave us a beautiful religion. We are a religion of peace. We do not harm our neighbor. But again, the duty is that these people, did they have any moral values? Were they taught from the ground level when their mothers or their parents were bringing them up?
Thank you. I think you've raised a very important point. Majid, you wanted to say something, sorry?
Yeah, just to come back on the point about, who needs to do what to get out of this situation. Mm-hmm. In Rochdale, let's talk specifically about Rochdale. Mm-hmm. We were addressing these issues a long time ago.
Okay.
A long time ago. And I'll refer you to a theme of circles, of Islamic studies circles, which were...
Let me just say, Dr. Alawi, I'm very grateful for your time. I know that you're an extremely busy man. We're very grateful, and the points that you raised have been taken.
Thank you.
And no doubt, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Yeah, a long time ago, so we had a series of circles with some of the younger generation in Rochdale, which were called the Thug Life series circles. The thug life. So this whole thing that you can do whatever you want and you're so bad, imitating black culture and the way they behave towards women. There was a series of circles that we did on this issue. You call it workshops, probably a better example. Some of the ideas that we discussed, some of the titles were, one was Bad to the Bone. There was one which talked about wives, girlfriends, or both. Okay, this mentality that you can get married and be still a player, which is what we're finding in this scenario here. Get rich or die trying. So we were addressing very, very key and fundamental issues which shape what we talked about earlier on, what the brother mentioned, the Islamic shakhsiyah. Children from the age of 11 onwards to about 18 or 19 were being addressed here. And what we used was popular, what we call rap, which was not accompanied with music. We got people to come in and write lyrics for these type of workshops to address this culture where you might think of a woman as lesser of somebody else to your family, and we were trying to address this from an Islamic angle. So the fact is, this type of work is taking place. Nobody can say that
it hasn't taken place.
It hasn't taken place. You're not doing nothing. And again, there's too much fascination about just a particular body of Muslims in our community. They need to be doing this. They might not even be aware about these issues because they don't face them in day-to-day life. We've looked at them, see them in college, university.
Let's take this caller. We'll come back to that. Qasim from Manchester. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, sister. Just wanted to make a comment about the politicians and the media. Basically, the biggest educator of people in society is not unfortunately, it's not the mosque, and it's not the teaching institutions. It's society itself. So I mean, I've got kids. My kids, they learn stuff from school. They go to school, but they also pick up things from society as well. I mean, society educates people. So I think the problem is that when Muslims or even communities, they try to address their problems or problems within their own, community, then the government comes down and says, no, sorry, you can't do that. So, for example, some people, try to establish Islamic schools. The government clamps down and says, oh, no, you can't have Islamic schools because they have to be secular. You have to teach secular curriculum. Then there's a big, discussion about it in the media. That's the first point. The second point is the media and the government. I think both know that Islam is a solution to many of life's problems, especially for people living in this country. And therefore, to malign Islam and to, make it look bad in the eyes of people, it works out for them, or they try to push it that way. I mean, obviously, Allah is the best of planners, and the plan will backfire on them anyway, because more people will try to find out about Islam anyway. So this is what they try to do. So basically, the politicians, the media, they're all in this together. And we know about the strong relationship between the media and the politicians and the police and what have you. They've got that strong relationship there, and they build on that, and they try to malign Islam and make Islam and Muslims look bad in the media. Now, just the third point is, very quickly, if you look at the murders in Scandinavia, what's his name, Anders Breivik, he killed so many people in the name of secularism, and in the name of freedom, and then in the name of democracy. Now, if you took his background and you said anybody that believes in freedom, anybody that believes in democracy, anybody who's Scandinavian, is a terrorist, needs to be arrested, their background needs to be checked. I mean, he even claimed that he had links to the EDL and BNP and what have you. EDL more specifically, but are they going to investigate EDL? Are they going to clamp down on EDL? Are they going to say, well, EDL is the problem? I don't think they are. So again, I think my point is basically it's a coordinated campaign against Islam and Muslims.
Who's going to start that coordinated campaign? Very quickly.
I think I don't think what I mean by the coordinated campaign, sister, is that it's the government and the media who are doing this again.
Yeah, but why should we rely on the government and the media?
Yeah, it's a coordinated campaign against Islam. It's not for Islam, it's against Islam. So we as a Muslim community, we have to combat that campaign.
But you can't get 5 Muslims from different schools of thought to sit around one table. How are you going to have a coordinated conversation?
Yeah, I've been to many talks and many discussions. I mean, alhamdulillah, the 2 brothers who are with you today, we should hold. I mean, it's good in a studio, but I think if the Ummah Channel can arrange something like this on a mass scale.
Alhamdulillah. Next time I'm going to ask you, Brother Qasim, to come down to Ummah. Let's have that discussion. Jazakallah khair for that call. Thank you. I'm really grateful. Let me ask you a question, Mazhar bhai. What about if these 9 men were white and the girls had been Asian? What would have happened?
What if, on Radio 4 this morning, one of the guys from the charities, I forget his name, Mr. Neri, he said it's a specific problem with Pakistani people in Northern Town. Yeah? That's a really stupid comment, excuse my language, stupid comment to make, because if it's a problem in Northern Town, that means it's not a problem in the Southern towns, it's not a problem in the Eastern towns, it's not a problem in the Western towns, not a problem in Scotland, it's not a problem in Wales, meaning other people are involved. It's just not Pakistani people, it's just not Asian, it's just not Muslims. So the problem, this is a societal problem. And the way if you ask me how we're going to deal with it.
No, I'm asking you, what would have happened, and we're speculating.
What would have happened?
What would have happened?
Well,
would we have played the race card?
The majority of the people who are arrested for paedophilia are white, fact. Majority of the people arrested for internet grooming are white, fact. Majority of criminals are non-Pakistani, fact. But their race is not brought into it, their religion is not brought into it, because there is almost, you would be forgiven for saying almost an agenda from behind the scenes somewhere is orchestrating to demonize Islam for whatever reason.
But nobody can demonize Islam, for goodness sakes. Alhamdulillah, Islam is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Allah is protected, but Shaitan is always active using different agencies. I mean, look, why do we look to the politicians for
I'm not looking at the politicians.
No, I know. In society as a whole, we said, look to the politician. Look, let's take Jack Straw, for example. If you look at Jack Straw, his son, 17-year-old, was arrested for drug.
Let's take Brother Razak from Warrington. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, Sister Razak from Warrington. I beg your pardon, Sister. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Nuzhat, not Razak, Nuzhat. I think I know this girl.
How are you?
Assalamu alaikum, Sister. Are you well?
Alhamdulillah, very well, thank you.
Tell me what you need to, the pearls of wisdom, Nuzhat, share them.
Right, well, this topic, honestly, everybody's talking about what's happening. And I personally think we shouldn't be blaming any religion, any race, any colour whatsoever. It's the perpetrators themselves. Regardless whether they're Muslims or whoever they are, the perpetrators themselves are the criminals. And
still there, Nuzhat?
And Baji, the other thing is, you have to think perpetrators use careful planning, scheming and execution of strategies to groom the child. So can you imagine what they've done to this poor child? And do you know, I've got a perfect solution for this. For me, if you said to me, Nuzhat, what do you think should happen? I think you should get these males, and castration should be the thing.
I'm going to stop you right there. That's a very harsh statement to make on television, Nuzhat.
No, but it's the truth. What have they done to these children? Absolutely took everything away from them, and I believe this is what should happen. So
thank you, beta. Thank you. We will talk later. Jazakallah for your call. Well, there you are. At least we've got one solution. I'm not too sure that we can implement it immediately because we do not have that kind of law in this country.
I'm just going to read some of the comments which have been made by the Rochdale Council Mosque. They've issued a statement today.
Oh, alhamdulillah.
And one of the parts I think is quite interesting. It says, we must also not lose sight of the fact that there is a wider issue of child exploitation, international trafficking and internet grooming that is almost a plague internationally. The RCM will continue to support the GMP, RMBC, Rochdale Metropolitan Borough Council, and other partners to work together for the betterment of our community to eradicate such evil from our borough. Even one of the comments that I heard when the person was given an interview a few months back, he said that the journalist tried to pin him down on this race issue, and he said this is an international issue. So the journalist was scratching his head, what on earth are you talking about happening in Rochdale? How is it an international issue? So he goes, look at Silvio Berlusconi.
Yes. Hold that there, Majid. Hold that thought. But we've got to take this caller. Asif, salaam alaikum from Blackburn.
Walaikum salam, Anjum.
Ji Asif, what do you have to say?
My point, I mean, listening to your program avidly, and a lot of the points that Majid has made on your panel, I agree with. And I think it's key to address this issue from the angle that the media, and some media commentators and politicians are specifically picking up on the race angle and the religion angle. But even the experts, whether it's the police or Child Protection Agency or Bernardo's, they've come out categorically said that race has no factor in what these people did. They are sexual predators, like Majid has said. I think that needs to be made crystal clear. These people who carried out these depraved acts on these poor children, they carried them out on the fact that these girls were vulnerable girls, not because they were vulnerable white girls.
But they were, Asif, hold on, they were vulnerable, weren't they?
They were vulnerable girls, but the white aspect of it is the one that's been highlighted by the media and certain politicians. And some people within our community are somehow accepting this, that there's some sort of culture within our, Pakistani community that encourages and condones this kind of behavior, and it's totally wrong. And I think as Muslims, as Pakistanis, we should be all standing up and saying, look, we find these acts heinous and depraved acts, and yes, we're happy that these people have been convicted and sent down for a very long time. But what we're not going to sit there and accept is that somehow that this is a Pakistani issue that is inherent within us, and somehow support Jack Straw and the likes of Nick Griffin and, peddle this right-wing agenda. And I think we need to listen to the experts. The experts are quite crystal clear on the matter. Where a year and a half ago, when the Jill Dandos Institute was commissioned to do a study on this issue, right, they made it clear that this is not a race issue, that this is an issue about sexual predators exploiting vulnerable young girls. The fact they are white is immaterial. It's the fact that they are vulnerable young girls. And these people would have picked on Asian girls if they had been vulnerable. And there have been cases, like Majid has stressed, that Asian vulnerable girls have been exploited. And that's key.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
And finally, in your question saying, what's the solution? Unfortunately, the solution has to be a national solution on this. It's not a
But we need to start somewhere. You are a black ban activist. I expect you to start some sort of... No, hold on a minute. The judges has made certain comments and said that these young girls were not from your community, and that is implying something. And I think this judge needs to be told. He needs to be told these remarks are not acceptable.
No, they're definitely not acceptable. I mean, for example, if the Italian mafia carry out crimes, the Catholic Church is not held responsible. The Catholics are not asked to look within themselves and look at their teachings. Why have they created this situation? They are creating these criminals. Similarly with the Catholic priests in Ireland and elsewhere in the world, the Catholics were not responsible. The Catholic religion is not responsible for that. And
but we know that, Asif.
Islam is not responsible. Neither is the Pakistani community collectively. And what we should not be doing is taking collective responsibility for these criminals who are a very small minority within the whole.
So basically what you're saying is that we need to divorce ourselves from these men to say they're idiots, they've committed a crime, we have nothing to do with it. The fact is, should we be doing something?
No, well, you use the word idiots, I would have used a more appropriate word. You're evil.
Evil, absolutely evil.
Evil, and that's it, and that's the position we should take. And yes, collectively, we should be working with the churches, with the police, with the child protection agencies, etc., to prevent these people from carrying out their, acts on these young, vulnerable children. And hopefully, but
Inshallah.
We have to also recognize that this is an issue which has been ongoing since, the world was created. Child exploitation is not something new, hasn't been created by the Pakistani community overnight.
Good. Well, that means I expect you to be doing something soon. Asif, it's always a great pleasure to speak with you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz. Berlusconi. Whenever you mention that name, my skin crawls.
Yeah, everybody's skin.
My skin crawls. Yeah. And I've been sitting here thinking, why did he mention that name?
Yeah. Because he's been responsible for women who have been trafficked, and obviously he's been used them, and they are also been underage. And again, it was goods for sexual favors.
I know,
and tried to hide upon. This is the head of a state in Europe who did this.
I know, I just cringe.
And then we had the head of the IMF.
Yes,
who did exactly the same thing.
Absolutely.
And what came out in the end, it wasn't just a single act where something happened and now he's sorry for it. He was part of a prostitution ring. He was running this.
Absolutely.
Him, I think, or his wife was running this. Something Khan he was called.
Yeah, let's not talk about Berlusconi again. It does make my skin crawl. We're going to take a short break. Please don't give up on us. Come back to Community Platform. Within the next 2 minutes, we'll be with you. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Community Platform. The discussion today, of course, is in the last half an hour, is based on the Rochdale Grooming, the 9 who have been arrested. We've taken calls, we've heard views that it is not a racial problem, it is not a religious problem, it's a criminal act. The fact that the media, the politicians have actually played the race card is appalling. There have been insinuations that BNP were aware of the decision of the court before even the court knew themselves. If that is the case, then confidentiality has been breached. We'll see what happens in the future. Let's come back and let's talk to 2 members of our panel, Majid and Mazhar, and discuss where are we going with this now? How do we make this work? Some of our callers have said that we shouldn't take the responsibility. They were criminals. The fact is, they were part of the Ummah. What do we do? Mazhar bhai, what do we do?
I think we need to stop looking to other people to solve our problems. And
Absolutely.
I think we need to really empower our communities a lot more. The role of the masjid needs to be expanded. Maybe we need to set up some sorts of institutions locally. I mean, we've set up schools, we've set up nurseries, all sorts of things we've set up. And I think we need to be more self-independent.
Self-reliant.
Yes, self-reliant. I remember coming to a talk 20 years ago in Blackburn, in this very town, and the late Kaleem Siddiqui.
Great man.
He said, people from Pakistan, India came to this country. They didn't speak English. they weren't well educated, they weren't well informed about Islam, but they established the mosques, they established the madrasas, they allowed for halal meat, and they set up all sorts of stuff. If they could do that without the help of politicians, we are so much more better equipped. Why can't we do more than that? Why do we feel that the politicians have to solve all our problems? They don't share the values we have, and only we can really care for our communities and look after them, and we need to create our institutions, and we need to empower ourselves and protect our values and be an example to the other people. We should want white people, non-Muslim people wanting to come and live with the Muslims, because they see that, you know what, our houses are safer, our communities are safer, and we should create not ghettos but oases of calm in our societies whereby...
Remind me about the Muslim Spain somewhere.
But you know, if we create oases of calm in our Blackburn, in Preston, in Bolton, wherever, and allow non-Muslims to come and live with us, that's how we should be looking to promote our deen and protecting our values.
Let's take this call. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Muhammad from Blackburn.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. It's an interesting discussion we've got going today.
So community platform, Brother Muhammad, has always got interesting conversation.
Yeah, well, obviously, this has been the main news going through today about what's happening with this case. And I think really what we need to do as a community is pull together. Mazhar's correct in what he's saying in terms of doing things off our own skin, being self-reliant. And there is no reason, with the way we organize our communities already, with the forums we have, with social networking on the internet, we can create our own media. We've got Ummah Channel, we can use the internet, we've got social groups within our community. We need to come together and address these issues. There's issues to do with Islam and the Islamic perspective, and there's issues from the side of society at large. And we can address both as Muslims and come together and come out with solutions. And I think it's really important we deal with it, and it is a holistic approach that needs to come, because this issue, the grooming issue, behind it, what was there? There was the sexualization of teenagers. There was the drugs and alcohol. There's a promiscuity in society. All these issues, it's not just one issue. This is a result of a number of subtle factors that have come together which have created these problems. And earlier comments were right, because in terms of paedophilia and internet grooming, etc., are mostly done by quote-unquote white people. However, average Pakistani men won't go to the internet. They won't go to these other modes. And probably this has come about in its category, which it is, because of the avenues that Pakistani man has available to them. However, this isn't a Pakistani problem. This is criminality, is evil. But as Muslims, we can deal with that as well. We need to be out in the community. We need to say to our imams, why are you only doing khutbahs on wudu and namaz and salah and not going into these social ills? We need to deal with that as well. We need to come out and say, we need to instill the concepts of Islam. We need to instill the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the community. So that
Muhammad, I'm going to cut you short there, because we're running really now into the closing. But worries. I appreciate your call, and I expect you to come up with a fantastic project in Blackburn, looking at exactly what you've just said, and I will hold you to that.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah feek.
Majid.
Yeah, just to go off the points that we kind of started off a discussion towards the end, is
not Berlusconi.
Not Berlusconi. Self-reliance is very important. We take up our own issues, we address them, we mobilize our communities behind them. That requires training up our young individuals, institutions like mosques. It needs to be this particular way. Things are not going to get any better. Let's put it this way. The demonization of Islam is continuing all the time. We're finding that international issues affect local issues over here. And therefore, it's a constant cycle of Muslims having to come forward and address issues correctly and give a correct perspective on these things.
Sure. The reason why we keep talking about mosque, because we see mosque as an institution which is leading. It's without my mosque, I don't know if I can exist.
I mean,
it's a central point.
We should work with our mosques.
Absolutely.
This is the thing.
We should help to enhance
If
the
they
work.
haven't raised this issue that, look, we're going to take the lead on this,
Absolutely.
you take the lead on this then yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
So the points that I've written just yesterday on one of my posts on my blog, again, those have been sent out to the mosques.
Good.
Now it's up to them if they want to raise these in the particular angle that have been raised on this particular blog site, or they can develop these arguments for themselves and give much more detail on the Islamic perspective. I'm expecting now this discussion to take place as the priority on Jummah. And what I'm going to be doing, I'll be sending out a Jummah transcript that I'll be writing myself.
Good, good.
And it will be emailed and even hand-delivered to some of these imams. It's up to them to take the honest.
I want you to send some here to Blackburn too.
Inshallah, I'll send it over to yourself. You can use this.
Okay, let's just take this call. Brother Shaukat from Manchester, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Ji, brother, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I'd like to say, as a Bangladeshi, I'd like to say this grooming incident in Haywood, what has happened, blaming the Pakistani community or blaming Islam is wrong and it's inadequate. Yeah, and that will not solve the problem. What needs to be done is, yes, I agree, the Pakistani community needs to look into themselves and say what is happening. And this is not the first time such an incident happened. We had similar cases before of grooming relating to the Pakistani youth that has happened. And I know personally there's 7 more cases involving young Pakistani men. Cases are about to come in the future. And it is a stigma on the Pakistani community. And I think, if it happened in my Bangladeshi community, the first thing that I would advise my community leaders to do is first organize people of Pakistani community to march in Haywood and say, listen, this is nothing to do with our religion or our community, and we are sorry and ashamed of it, these criminal acts. And the second thing they need to do, you have highly intellectual Pakistani people in this country. I know one of them who lives in Ashton was an ex-justice minister who is very religious-minded. Pakistani community need to employ these people and set about investigating, finding out what causes these social ills and what are the solutions to it.
Do you know something? I think you're the star of my show, Shaukat Bhai.
Whatever
you have said, I've taken to heart. I'm so grateful that you took the time to call. Jazakallah khair.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Yeah, one more thing. And we had a recent by-election where there were 6 BNP councillors throughout the UK, and all of them were ousted. And, we should think about that. And this incident has given ammunition, for the massive right-wing media and the BNP to attack us Muslims.
I think, Shaukat Bhai, my colleague here would like to say something to you. Mazhar Bhai.
Yeah.
Okay,
we always mention the BNP and the EDL. Look, it's not the BNP and EDL who have created this agenda. We're talking about Islam and this crime now, not because of EDL or BNP. It's because the mainstream politicians are saying this. Phil Wallace was kicked out of Parliament for lying about the Muslims. Anne Cryer herself, has been vitriolic against the Muslims. We've also had Jack Straw. It's the mainstream politicians, Labour Party, Tory Party, Lib Dem Party. They are creating the atmosphere which allows EDL and BNP to put their heads above the parapet. They would never say what they do, but they can say it because they know Jack Straw said the same thing. Phil Wallace has said the same thing. Anne Cryer has said the same thing. And look, we need to now stand up. And when these politicians say this, and this judge, what he said, we need to stand up and say, I'm sorry, we don't accept this.
Brother, can I just interrupt you, please? Yeah. Can you hear me, brother?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can.
You see, and we know what's happening, and we know how the media is and how the extreme right groups are. But we need to consider, and we say, listen, this is a criminal act being committed within the Pakistani community. It's no good going around blaming the politicians and this and that, or the churches, or pedophiles or something like that. This criminal act has been committed. It is wrong, and every Pakistani people in this country accept it is being wrong. And we need to put our house in order first, then before we go out and attack others.
Look, hold on, no, I don't accept that. I don't accept that because these Pakistanis have not committed these crimes because they're Pakistanis. They have not committed this crime because they're Muslims. They committed these crimes because they're criminals. So we should have nothing to do with this.
But
We should not feel responsible. We should not feel responsible for what those criminals did. The criminals did it, not the Pakistanis, not the Muslims, not anybody else.
And how many Pakistani people are saying this is right? What happened?
I'm not cascading.
Nobody's saying this. So why should we feel apologetic and say, oh, guilt? Yeah.
Guilt.
So the brother's talking about guilt, and we should take it upon ourselves.
Brother Shaukat, what my panel members are saying here is that these were criminals, as you quite rightly pointed out, they were criminals. But the problem is that the certain politicians have painted the whole of the Pakistani community, Islamic community, the Muslim community, as if there's something inherent
yes,
in this community.
I agree, and they're wrong. They're wrong to make all Pakistanis, blame it on all Pakistanis or Muslims. I totally agree with that. But there is a problem there. We need to identify that problem and solve the problem.
But I think my two panel members have identified that had this been dealt as a criminal behavior, let's look at a terrorist. When somebody is a terrorist, we should not treat them as Muslim, we should not look at their religion, but that they acted in a way which was terribly wrong. What we are saying is that this is not a racial problem, this is not a religious problem, it's a criminal problem. Let's deal with that.
Yes, but sister, do you realize these incidents have happened before, and people have been prosecuted and put in jail, and there is 7 more cases relating to these.
I know, in Bradford, I believe that there are certain cases in Bradford coming up. Yes, I'm aware of that. Brother Shaukat, as I said, thank you so much. You are a new caller. I hope that you continue to watch our program and contribute as positively as you've done. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Allah Hafiz. Difficult to move away, Majid, isn't it? Difficult to move away to say that I don't. I mean, the times I did feel guilty. I can't get away from that because everywhere I'm looking is a Pakistani problem. It's a Muslim problem.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned we started the conversation off at the beginning with this on this note. That because we're Pakistani, obviously we are linked to the discussion, but we're going to detach ourselves when the point comes to when they start saying it's something to do with you. It isn't.
But maybe that's one of the solutions. Maybe that is something that we really need to say, criminals, they're not part of my community. But can I say that? Because what Jack Straw is saying, the Pakistanis, what that
He had to apologize for those comments. He had to apologize for those comments internally to his own party, to the councillors in Blackburn, in a leaked email that came up on one of the local websites. Yes, he's actually done that. I shouldn't have said that, actually. It was wrong. Or the wording was wrong.
Well, so that means, but it was only because he was pressed to do that. He wouldn't have done it himself, would he? Seriously, think about it.
No, but did people in Britain call Jack Straw to come and apologise for the behaviour of his family when his son got arrested for drug abuse and his brother got arrested for sexual deviancy?
Yes.
Now, we could say that, hold on a second, statistically, if your name's Straw, you're going to be a criminal. In fact, funnily enough, his son's name was William Straw and his brother's name is William Straw. So we should say to the Jack Straw family, don't name any of your family members William, because statistically they'll end up in jail. So, but did people call Jack Straw to come out and apologise for his family? So why should we feel obliged and guilty to apologise for some criminals? They've got nothing to do with us. They've got nothing to do with us. They're criminals.
They're criminals. And they should be punished. It's been an interesting, you have last 30 seconds, profound wisdom.
Empower the community.
1 minute, you have 5 seconds.
Empower the community, expand the role of the masjids, and let's feel responsible, and let's stop looking to other people to solve our problems, and let's engage with our communities and think and come up with some good ideas.
I think that's brilliant. You should be the Prime Minister.
Yeah, come into programs like these, discuss our own issues on our own platforms with our own agenda and not fall into the agenda of others and end up being zipped and silenced. When it comes to when you need to say something, you can't even say anything after that then.
There you are, you've got it there. Self-reliance, independence. We have the most perfect, beautiful faith. We have the guidance. Let's understand it. I genuinely, personally believe it's religious illiteracy that is causing the problems within our community. Thank you so much for watching. Watch us next week, contribute. We could not do this program without you. Look after yourself and your neighbor, whoever they may be. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.